What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson, and the NFL Draft is tomorrow. Merry Draftsmas Eve. Tonight is the final night to get in all of your mock drafts, consume all of your content before all of the chaos in the world ensues tomorrow evening. It's going to be a really crazy time during the 2023 NFL Draft, and the past couple days, we've really seen that rumor mill start to get rolling. We've seen a lot of different rumors, reports, and news, particularly covering the New York Giants. A couple of the beat writers covering the team kind of went crazy the past few days, dropping a bunch of little hidden details and a bunch of little rumors and news that they're hearing about the Giants. So today we're going to go over a 3-round mock draft based on all of the latest rumors, reports, and news covering the Giants. I wrote this morning on EmpireSportsMedia.com. So we're going to go ahead and break it down 3 rounds. There's going to be a trade in here. You're going to see some really talented players land with the Giants. And I think this is a mock draft where if we walked away from this weekend with these 3 players, all of us would just be thrilled. So we're going to go ahead and break this down. But before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today? And how excited are you to kick off the 2023 NFL Draft?
I am ecstatic, my friends. This is going to be a really fun draft. We keep hearing the Giants are going to do some really exciting things. They have the opportunity to trade down or trade up, and there's a variety of reasons why they do either of them. Now, we've heard a lot about how some of these draft prospects don't even have first-round grades in the first round. Maybe there's only 15 or 20 players that actually have first-round grades. So if that's the case, the Giants may want to go up and move up a couple spots to find a player that is a first-round draft grade on their board. Or if they feel like they can get some extra value, they move back and they can find a pretty valuable player anyway in the second round or late first round, depending on if anyone's actually willing to move up. But the Giants have a couple opportunities here to make some moves and dish out some good value or gain some good value for what it's worth. And this draft that we've put together really focuses on kind of the highest graded players on what our board would theoretically be, or at the same time, also landing players that are positionally necessary for what we're trying to do in 2023. You know, adding a wide receiver, adding some cornerback depth, adding some good talent that fits the weaknesses of this roster, but at the same time, also goes out and gets some of the best players in this draft, in our opinion. So, Anthony, I'll let you kick it off with our first-round draft pick. I think it's a good one. I also have some takes I want to throw into the mix that the Giants could end up executing.
Yeah, so with the first round pick for the New York Giants in this year's draft, 25th overall, I had them taking Maryland's cornerback Deonte Banks. Now, this is an elite athlete. This is a player that the Giants reportedly really like. They're really high on. According to Jordan Rannon of ESPN, the Giants have 4 blue chip prospects at the cornerback position in the first round this year, Deonte Banks being one of them, and also being the most likely to fall to the Giants at 25. The other guys like Christian Gonzalez, like Joey Porter Jr., not very likely to fall all the way down to the Giants draft selection, but Deonte Banks, there's a chance. There's a chance that he falls that far. Now, is it a big chance? Maybe not, but if he's on the board, Jordan Rannon says that he expects the Giants to draft him. So, in this mock draft, we're going to go with the idea that Deonte Banks falls to 25, and based on what Jordan Rannon said, they take him, and I would love this pick. I think that when you're looking at the status of the New York Giants cornerback core right now, just taking a look at Adoree Jackson on the final year of his contract, the Giants seemingly having no intention of extending him on this deal. Then, of course, behind him, not a whole lot of talent. A lot of no-name players, a lot of veterans last year came in, kind of played this revolving door opposite of Adoree Jackson. You had guys like Fabian Moreau, you had Nick McLeod, and of course you had some of these young guys who were dealing with injuries like a Dane Belton moving in and out of the slot. You also had guys like Cordell Flott. Just not a lot of talent, not a lot of surefire talent there. What better way to really solidify this secondary than to invest your first-round draft pick in a blue-chip cornerback prospect with serious CB1 potential? Now, when you're looking at Deonte Banks and what he could provide, he could be your CB2 this year, and next year, if you do move on from Adoree Jackson, just elevate him right into that CB1 role. So, again, this is a guy who ran a blazing fast 40-yard dash, 4.35 seconds, and he was a really, really talented player for Maryland. This would be a perfect fit for the New York Giants in my opinion, if he were to last the 25 overall. But Alex, I know that you have a couple of reservations about this pick, just kind of based on the fact that Banks might not be on the board when the Giants are on the clock. So, who are some of these other players that you're looking at? And of course, what is your take on the Giants landing Deonte Banks with the 25th overall pick in this mock draft?
Look, I like Deontay Banks. He would be a really, really awesome player for the Giants to land. Definitely one that had a lot of success at Maryland, and you kind of recapped kind of what he offers you. He's really just smooth, and his recovery speed. He's an athlete. He's got a lot of the things that you look for. He's a phenomenal tackler as well. So good player, and he's tall, and he's agile. So you look at the characteristics of Deontay Banks, and he certainly has the makeup of a solid player for the Giants if they want to go in that direction. Now, personally, I'm fine with that, but there are other things the Giants can do. I think we're both on the board on the kind of the same wavelength of a cornerback in the first round is the most beneficial thing for this team, because ultimately you can find good receivers in the second round, but the drop off after the first round in cornerbacks is steep and it's significant, and you go from potential starters to potential backups really, really fast. And I think the Giants would be smart to go out and find themselves a top cornerback prospect in this draft class that they can groom and develop as a potential solution post Adoree Jackson, because his contract's going to expire next year, and they haven't even touched that. They haven't even considered extending him or restructuring it or adding another year, whatever it might be. They haven't even discussed it. So we have to imagine they're going to be letting him go, which makes me think a cornerback is probable. I would say there's a 50-50 chance it's a cornerback and 50-50 chance it's a receiver at this point in time. But as we get closer to tomorrow night, I could see that cornerback number kind of going up a little bit, maybe towards the 65-70% range. But there is a possibility the Giants say, you know what? We don't think Deontay Banks is a first-round grade. We only have maybe a couple that are within reach that are first-round grades. And if that's the truth, if that's possible, maybe they look for a guy like Joey Porter, who they were, interviewing and brought in for a top 30 visit a couple days ago. And Joey Porter, one of the best cornerbacks in this draft class, is physical. He's a great man coverage guy. Now, he doesn't have that makeup speed that Deontay Banks has, but he's really, really good in press man coverage, if the Giants want to kind of lean into that a little bit more. I know a lot of some people love Emmanuel Forbes. Other people hate Emmanuel Forbes. He may go after 25. I think most teams have a second round grade on Emmanuel Forbes, so if they wanted to trade back, he could be an option there because he's really long, he's lanky. Now he's really thin. He's like a stick, kind of like Cordell Flott was when they drafted him last year, but he's one of the most aggressive corners in this draft class, and he can contest at any catch point. Problem is he gets run over in the running game because he just doesn't have the size. So if they drafted him, he added 15 pounds of muscle mass. Maybe we got something to talk about there with him, but he may lose that speed. He may lose that agility and that bounciness that kind of makes him so coveted. But I will say this, Joey Porter, one of my favorite cornerbacks in this draft class. I would love for the Giants to go out and find a way to get him, as long as it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg. But if they sit pretty and wait for the draft to come to them, totally possible that Deontay Banks lands in. Now, mock draft simulators have him going anywhere from 20 to 25. They really have him going to Seattle at 20 and the Chargers at 21. Those are the two teams that he doesn't really get by when I kind of do the mock drafts over and over again. Again, could be total nonsense. These mock drafts don't do anything at the end of the day. They kind of I just saw the Jets take a cornerback in one of them. It's like, all right, they got DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. I don't think they're going to go for a cornerback. But, when you're looking at the Chargers, who could use cornerback depth, in Seattle, maybe they need another cornerback, and Minnesota definitely could use one, and the Baltimore Ravens as well. So when you're looking at that reality, maybe one of these guys is on the board. Maybe one of these guys is an option for the Giants. Another name to throw into the mix, Brian Branch out of Alabama. They love Brian Branch. A lot of teams like Brian Branch. They have him going all over the place in the draft. At the end of the day, he would be a really nice pickup for the Giants, as well as kind of a safety that could slot into the box, and he can also cover tight ends and running backs. He can cover in the slot. He's kind of like a cornerback / safety blend, which is super cool and hybrid. So you may want to go in a direction like that. But I do think Deontay Banks, if we're going to stick with our original pick at 25, does make a lot of sense. Really athletic, really fast, a lot of upside there to untap, and he's a great kid, so I do like that a lot about him. So 25th pick, Deontay Banks, I'm happy with it, but I do still think there's a probable chance the Giants either move up or move back in this draft.
Yeah, and listen, a lot of people might listen to that, cornerback at 25 and say, why not a wide receiver? Why not Zay Flowers? Why not Jordan Addison? Well, I just think that if Deontay Banks were to be on the board for the New York Giants, they would take him over any of those receivers. I think that those receivers, great prospects, players that we've discussed quite significantly for the Giants. And listen, there's a lot to be said about the Giants traveling all across the country to visit all of these wide receivers. But there's another wide receiver in mind that the Giants definitely feel like they can get in round two. However, we're going to go ahead in this mock trade and have the Giants trade up to secure Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss. Now, if you're paying attention to all of the top rumors and reports, the Giants are apparently really high on Jonathan Mingo, very interested in drafting him. He could be a sleeper selection with the 25th overall pick, but in this scenario, we're going to say Deonte Banks is on the board. That's a player they can't walk away from, but in round two, well, reports have it that the Giants are going to be looking to trade up in this draft. They have way too many picks, 7 picks after the fourth round. Fourth round through seventh round, they have 7 draft picks. The Giants cannot afford to draft 11 players. Like, they just can't do it. The 10 players, they have 10 picks in this draft. They're not going to be using all of them. So they're likely to be trading up. And I think that in round two, to land a wide receiver prospect that they feel like could potentially be a WR1 in their offense, that's the time to use those draft picks, move up and get Jonathan Mingo. Again, a player that we haven't really discussed a whole lot on this channel, a player that not a lot of Giants fans maybe really knew much about before this report came out, but the Giants are very high on Mingo. Jordan Rannon of ESPN says that he can go anywhere between pick 25 and pick 40. So in this mock draft and mock trade, we're going to have the Giants moving up 17 spots from 57 overall to 40, giving up picks 128, 240, and a 2024 fourth round pick in the process. So that lands the Giants with Jonathan Mingo, a 6'2", 220-pound physical slot wide receiver who also has the ability to move outside. Didn't have a ton of production in college at Ole Miss, but really put a lot on film to make NFL teams get really excited about him and the potential that he has to develop into something really special. Now, this is a player that really reminds me a lot of A.J. Brown coming out of college. I remember watching when A.J. Brown and Metcalf were coming out in that draft class and thinking, man, this Brown kid is not getting nearly the amount of hype that DK Metcalf is getting, but A.J. Brown, in my opinion, was the better prospect coming out of college and has so far proven to be the better player in the NFL. And A.J. Brown really does have a playing style that I think that Jonathan Mingo very much emulates. Both over 6 foot, both really strong and physical, going in and out of the slot, having the ability to go downfield. I mean, Mingo was a deep ball merchant in college, but he also had the ability to make a lot of plays after the catch and in the short to media area. He can kind of run that whole route tree. He really just fits the mold of what the New York Giants are looking for. Plus, he brings that physicality that is lacking from the New York Giants offensive receiving core right now. So Mingo with the 40th overall pick, if the Giants were to make this move, trade up and draft him, I think that could be a one-day potential home run solution, home run draft pick right there. Again, a sleeper player that not a lot of fans really have their eyes on, but right now, I think this is a guy who we should all be focusing in on. We're hearing a lot about how much the New York Giants like him just the night before the NFL draft, and I think that this is a player that really fits the bill. So, Alex, what are your thoughts on the potential mock trade up into the 40th overall selection, taking wide receiver Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss?
Look, Ole Miss receivers are traditionally very good. You know, you see some of the best, like look at Elijah Moore. He's a great receiver. Jets kind of mess with him. Unfortunate. But I'll tell you what, the Giants have an opportunity to go out and get a player who, does he have burner speed? No, but he has solid hands, very good hands. I think Mingo may be one of the more well-rounded receivers in this draft class. You look at all the other guys, a lot of them have weaknesses, whether it be injury concerns or drops, or lack of size or lack of speed. You know, they're all kind of over the place when it comes to their weaknesses. But I look at Jonathan Mingo and I kind of look at a really nice, well-rounded player. And one element to his game that goes very under the radar, he is a ridiculously great run blocker on the outside and in the slot. He can do some great stuff. Think about all the great run blockers we had at that wide receiver position in the past, notably Sterling Shepard, who has just put in a ridiculous amount of effort there. Mingo can do a lot for you. He can play in the slot. He can move up to the outside. He's got great hands. He's very physical. He can high point and catch. And, you know, sometimes, so like, you know, when you watch his game, that lack of speed sometimes catches up to him, and it does put him in some peculiar situations, but he's so physical and he's so good at the point of attack that even though cornerbacks sometimes can catch up to him, he still makes the catch anyway because he does have such good physical traits. And, you know, he's not like a Kenny Golladay. Like, don't get it mixed up. He's not this big, brawny, brawly kind of guy. He's a really crisp route runner that just doesn't have elite speed. But how many receivers do we have to look at in the NFL to say you don't need elite speed to be amazing? Like, Cooper Kupp doesn't have elite speed. Devontae Adams doesn't have elite speed. You know, like A.J. Brown doesn't have elite speed. Devontae Smith doesn't have elite speed. Like, how many guys? I mean, Justin Jefferson's fast as hell, but he's just a freak of nature, so I'm gonna leave him out of that one. But you look at a guy like Jonathan Mingo, and I don't really think that you need to say he's got to have this breakaway speed, he's got to have this ridiculous thing. He's a great route runner. He has great hands. He's been really healthy for the most part in his collegiate career. Have the numbers necessarily been there? Not all the time, but that's mainly because his quarterback was dog crap at times, and I think that kind of holds a receiver back, don't you think? So I do feel as though Jonathan Mingo would be a tremendous selection for the Giants. Now, it's not going to take a whole lot to move up to the 40th overall pick from 57. So if the Giants feel as though Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers and some of these top receivers in the draft class, which a lot of analysts don't think are that great, if they have second round grades on these players and they also have a second round grade on Jonathan Mingo, which seems to be true, why would you draft one too early? You might as well wait, trade up a couple spots, get yourself a second round value, where you don't have to take a second round value at 25 or in the first round. You take the top cornerback available, which are traditionally a lot more valuable selections because cornerback is so hard to develop and so hard to find great players there. And then the Giants have some time to groom a top gun, a first round pick at the cornerback position to eventually assume Adoree Jackson's role. So I feel as though this makes a lot of sense. Mingo certainly is solid. He has the upside to be a really good receiver. I'm not going to say he's going to be a wide receiver one at the next level, but I certainly think he has the upside and potential to do that if he gains a little bit of speed with a proper nutrition, proper training at the NFL level, just adds another split second to his time, a little bit more burst. I think that he could be a very nice receiver for this Giants team for a very long time. And I do believe that this would be a really nice pickup for them. And, if they are that interested and they do have a second round grade on him along with some of those other receivers, I think that we're going to see them make a move in the second round rather to go out and grab him.
Yeah, listen, we know that they have a lot of interest in him, and when you take a look at this player, he makes a lot of sense for what the Giants want to do on offense. So Jonathan Mingo in the second round, I think would be an excellent selection. And again, they got to get rid of some of those extra late round draft picks. So moving up to draft a player that they feel like they have a really strong opinion on and really need to get on their team just makes a lot of sense in the second round. But let's move on to the third round draft pick. Now, this is another player that we haven't spoken about too much, but again, the Giants are reportedly really, really interested in Arkansas center Ricky Stromberg. Now, he has a connection to the New York Giants in a roundabout way. He was coached by Sam Pittman at Arkansas, the same college coach that recruited and coached Giants offensive tackle Andrew Thomas at Georgia. He was the Georgia's offensive line coach from 2016 to 2019. So some familiarity there between Pittman and Stromberg. Maybe that means something. Maybe it means nothing at all. But when you look at this guy Stromberg, he's a pretty damn good player. And if he's there in round 3, considering that the Giants, there's reportedly about 3 centers that they're really high on. John Michael Schmitz, who we've talked about pretty extensively on this channel, Ricky Stromberg, and of course Joel Tippmann. But focusing in on this Arkansas center, this is a player who has a lot of athleticism and a lot of strength. He really does know how to get to the second level. He dominated out in the SEC, was a 2-year starter for Arkansas, and again, was just a really, really good player for the Arkansas offense. And when you're looking at what the New York Giants need right now, in this mock draft, we're addressing all 3 of the major needs, but with good value. If Deonte Banks falls to them at 25, that's one of their top needs checked off with a first-round talent. And then Jonathan Mingo in the second round also checks off one of their top needs with a second-round talent. In the third round, though, Ricky Stromberg, a player who might drop into the third round, potentially a fourth-round pick, but I think that the Giants here take him because they're high on him. And also, center is such a massive need for this team. John Feliciano departed in free agency. Nick Gates departed in free agency. The Giants really do need to find themselves a center, and Ricky Stromberg is a player that a lot of people feel like can be a day one starter in the NFL. So if you're the New York Giants and you're sitting there with the 89th overall selection, I think that Stromberg makes a whole lot of sense as a player who can make an instant impact in your offense that desperately needs some aid on the offensive line. So Alex, what are your thoughts on Ricky Stromberg as the Giants kind of look into maybe drafting a center, not too early in this draft, but within these first 3 rounds?
I mean, look, so some people have Ricky Stromberg as a fourth round draft grade, but I will say this, that once you get past the third round, once you're in the third round, it's kind of doesn't matter. Draft projections don't really matter. Third, fourth round picks it doesn't really matter. You could miss on a third round pick and you could miss on a fourth round pick. They're equally as a shot in the dark at times. So Personally, I would love to find a long-term solution at center. For what it's worth, he had the number one ranked athleticism score in this entire class at the center position. So he's a freak athlete. Like, this is the type of guy you want to develop a game around. But I'll tell you this right now, he's a little bit undersized at 306 and 6'3". He could gain a little bit more weight and be totally fine, maintain his athleticism, be totally fine. I think this is not a big deal when it comes to his size. I will say that I do think a lot of his weaknesses are fundamental based. I do think that a lot of his weaknesses are coachable, and I think that's like the prime variable to consider here. The prime like kind of narrative is that if you're going to go out and get a player in the third round, maybe you kind of estimate they will be your starting center or a starting player. They need to not have physical limitations, right? Like, they can't be limited physically, because then you can't coach around certain limitations when it comes to the physical characters of a player. So when it comes to his size, he's not going to get any taller than 6'3", but he could gain a couple extra pounds, get a little bit heavier, which kind of develops his anchor a little bit more. But all of his weaknesses are fundamentals based, are simply just things that you can fix through coaching. So if the Giants trust Bobby Johnson, if they trust this coaching staff to develop the offensive line, and especially on an individual level, Ricky Stromberg in the third round, I'm totally fine with, even though some have him as a fourth round draft grade. I think this would be a fine selection. You kind of buy into the athleticism, you develop him, and even if he struggles a little bit in year one, what have we not seen at the center position in the last couple seasons that says we can't kind of roll with that, right? Like, I'd rather roll with a player that's going to be developing and getting better on a week-by-week basis, on a year-by-year basis, than going out and running John Feliciano or Billy Price out there to play center, okay? I want a long-term solution. This guy is athletically gifted. He's got a lot of upside, just needs good coaching, and I think the Giants have really good coaching to help him kind of extract the best version of himself at the NFL level.
Yeah, and if you're into the relative athletic scores of these prospects, Ricky Stromberg graded really highly at a 9.86. And comparing that to Creed Humphrey, I mean, he's pretty similar in athleticism and size to Creed Humphrey, who basically entered the NFL and was a day one all-pro caliber player. Also went in the third round. So when you're looking at a guy like Ricky Stromberg as a third round pick, I think the value is there. And again, it makes a lot of sense for the New York Giants to target a player like this, because he has the potential to start as a quality starter from day one as a rookie, and that's exactly what the Giants need. They do need players who can make an impact right away and also be long-term solutions, because they're not that far off, right? They just made it to the divisional round of the playoffs, so let's see if they can add a few pieces in this upcoming draft to really bolster this roster and continue to take those strides going forward under Brian Dable and Joe Schoen, and hopefully get themselves a fifth Lombardi trophy within the next few years. So Ricky Stromberg, I like that pick, and honestly, in total, I love this mock draft. I think that this is a really realistic mock draft, thinking about what the Giants want, who they like, and of course thinking about how the draft board might fall and who might be available for the New York Giants to take. This mock draft, very realistic based on all the latest rumors and reports. And again, I think that this would be a home run draft. I know it's not a lot of the players that everybody knows a bunch about, none of the flashy superstar prospects in this draft class. But if you're taking that realistic approach and trying to predict who the New York Giants might land over the course of this weekend, I think that these three players in this mock draft, they have a really good shot of wearing some big blue this upcoming season. But let us know what you think of this mock draft down below in the comment section. And also, drop us your mock drafts down below in the comment section. I want to read them, reply to them, compare, contrast, see who has the best mock draft, and see how many of you can accurately predict the first round pick for the New York Giants. Comment your thoughts down below. And again, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And if you were listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.